Hello my beautiful puddings and welcome to another Kittie's Classroom. This is finally part 4 of 4 of the pudding tutorial. In today's video we're going to learn how to thread the mouth, sew the ears on and sewing the head onto the body. I will have a separate quick little video on how to make whiskers and eyelashes like this babe here, and don't forget that all the needle felting is a completely separate tutorial that you will have to watch before this whole series. If you've watched this far and you haven't purchased a pudding pattern, what are you doing? They're in the link below. We also have the kit available. It has pretty much everything you need except for a pair of scissors. And as always, if you have any questions, suggestions, if you need any help, make sure you leave a comment below. Give us a like and we'll get on with part 4. Okay, let's get cracking. I managed to not push record when I did the last face, so we're gonna have to do it on this one. So I've got my center point marked in the mouth where it dips down. And then I'm going to put a pin on either side of the mouth. It's kind of hard to see where it comes down and meets the edge. And that's where the edge of the mouth's going to be, like the end of its smile. You want to make sure you get those even. That one's maybe a little bit high. That's better. So I'm going to do one big thread at the top here from the nose down to the center. And then I'll embroider the nose, put the tongue in, and then I'll do these side ones. So we're going to use our upholstery thread, just one single piece with a big knot in the end so it doesn't get pulled through, and going in the back of the head where the neck's going to be sewn on, and we're going to come out where this pin is. We'll give it a wiggle so you can kind of see the hole, and I'm making sure it's in line with this center line on the head, and I'm going to go up to where I want the middle of the nose to be and straight back out of the head. So that's our little starting point, and I can embroider my nose on here. I'm going to tie this one off and then save it for the smile lines on the mouth. So ready to sew my nose, I use a trick of using a longer needle. So the same needle I used before, that it's long enough to reach from the back of the head through to the front. I've just got one single thread, it's not doubled over. You don't want it doubled over for the nose because you might end up with puckers. And I just use this to start the nose off, and then I use a really small embroidery needle to actually do the nose. Okay, so just using that big needle to get it started. And then I'm actually going to rethread it onto a smaller needle so I can do the fine details. I'm going to do one center stitch for how big I want the nose, and then I'm going to do 2 side stitches to make a little triangle. And then I'm going to just do one across the top so I have a guideline of where to start. So I really do apologise that it's really dark, but unfortunately this is what I've got to work with. So we embroider the nose, and I'm just going back into that centre point and back up to the top. And I'm not pulling it too tight because we don't want to be ripping the felt. Just doing it nice and gentle, trying to line them up at the top as best I can. And if you can see how the stitches are a bit crossed over there, I'll just put a little bit of another layer there so that it's not going sideways and it covers them up. And now I'm going to change my needle back over to the big one and pull it through out the back of the head. So I'm not very good at embroidery. If you are, you'll probably have a much better face than mine. You'll probably be able to do detailed little nostrils and all kinds of things, but I'm just not that good at it. So here we go, there's my little nose. It's not perfect. I'm not even wearing my glasses and I can tell it's not perfect, but it's good enough for what I want today. Tie it off. So for my dog's tongue, I'm just going to freehand this shape going off of what I've got here. Just cut 2 little sides for his sides of his mouth. And then a rough little tongue shape. We'll see if that fits. I did fix up his nose by just felting a little bit over the top. So that's not great. So that one's better. And what we're going to do is just put one single stitch down the center and then needle felt the two edges down. So I'm just putting one stitch down the center of my tongue. I'm just going to do one stitch about halfway down and tying it off. And then I'm just going to place his tongue in. This is my second take of doing this because I can't watch what I'm doing and watch what I'm filming at the same time, and I make mistakes. So I'm just going to push it right up so that it's going to get in the crevices, and then needle felting it down, being very careful not to needle felt on that one stitch because you don't want to pull that down. And needle felting it in makes it look that the tongue's actually coming out of his mouth instead of just sitting on top of it. And if you wanted to give it more depth, you could use a little bit of paint or pan pastels, or what do I use? Soft pastels. So his tongue's on there, and then we'll do our smile lines. We're going to use our long needle for our smile lines. We're going to go in the back of the head, coming out at this spot under the nose, and you can push your tongue down and try and get it right in there. That's as close as I'm going to get. And over the top of the tongue, we're going to bring the smile line down and into where the side pin is. Give it a jiggle to try and make it leave a mark. And then we're pulling it from there back out. And you should be able to make it go down around the mouth. You pull it quite tightly and it will push that down. It's really hard to see on this dark felt, I know. And then we're going to go back up in that center hole again, trying to get it as close as you can to lining up with the other ones. Out of shot again, no surprise. And into the other side. And out the back. And it just threads the mouth to give it a bit of a smile. You don't have to do this stuff if you want, I just like to because it does give that little bit of detail. And it covers up the tongue, makes it look like it's coming out of the mouth, and then you just tie it off at the back. Oh, he's cute. The ears are super simple. We're just sewing the front to the back of our two pieces cut and making sure that you've got a mirror. Using your guidelines on the top of the head, we're just going to be sewing them on like that. The dog just has one extra step over the cat, but I'll show you that when we get to it. So we're just going to sew these together and then we'll sew them on. When we get to the end of sewing the ear, we're just going to try and tuck it in between the two layers. Open up the inside, bring it down in between the two and tie our knot off in here. You don't want to put it too close to the edge because you don't want to get caught on it when you're sewing the ears on. Chop it off, tuck the thread in there, and then our ears are ready to sew on. So the cat's nice and easy. Just pop them on over the row of stitching at the top. Make sure they're the same distance away from the middle. Go, and they're ready to go on. So when we're sewing the ears on, we're going to go in between the side seam, using our needle to kind of push away the two layers of the felt. You can also just go in through the top if you want, but this is how I do it. And then we're going to come out just in front of the ear at the base, and we're going to pull our knot actually into the seam. It will just disappear in there. And now we're going to catch the ear right behind that row of stitching, because that's where it's going to be the most secure at the bottom. You don't want your felt ripping. Make sure it's nice and tight down there with the pins. We're going to go in and then come out the front a few millimeters behind. I usually line them up pretty well with the stitches that are along here, just so it has a bit of continuity between the face and the ears. And we're coming out the back, and we're just going to repeat that the whole way up until we get up to here, and we just do the same thing, just like one big stitch on the inside all the way across. So when you're getting up to the front here, I'm just getting as close as I can to that row of stitching on the ear, and just going above that first stitch because that's going to be the most secure place to sew it down. And now we're going in and we're going to just make our big stitch all the way across, coming out in that same position at the front on the other side if I can with this little short needle. So if you've got a really short needle, that is going to be difficult. This one is shorter than what I usually do. I somehow magically lost my favorite needle the other day. Just disappeared into my lap, so I don't know what happened to it. And we're just going to continue along all the way to the end, and we'll be tying the knot off behind the ear and then covering that with some loose bit of felt fibers. So now I'm at the end. I'm just making sure I'm catching that last stitch right in the corner, and then at the back I'm going to go down and then coming out behind, just behind the ear in that little crevice there, and we'll sew our knot off. And then I'm going to go into the head and pop it out, pulling it nice and tight and snip the thread off. The knot isn't that noticeable. If you wanted to leave it, that's fine. What I like to do is I'll get a scrap of felt, and using a thick doll making needle, not your felting needle because you will break it, I just pull out some of the fibers. And I do this to cover all of these darts on my doll's head. I'm just going to show you very quickly. I'm not going to show you the whole thing because I've got to get rid of these watermarks. But you just place it over the top. It does take quite a while. It's a bit of a process, but I'm going to be blending it into my ears. You just needle felt it in, and it covers up your stitches there. And I've got my lighter colour. Needle felting it in over the top, blending it into the rest of the head there. And it's super easy, just blends it all in. And it's helpful to just push it, give it a bit of a rub as well, and sometimes I'll actually iron them so it's all blended in. Sometimes you got to do a couple layers, but it covers it over pretty well. So when we're doing the dog ears, it's the same kind of process. We're just putting them a lot further apart, and they're actually going to go pinned on the opposite way to what you think they would, because they're going to be folding down like this. So we're going to sew them on the exact same way as the cat, except for I'm just going to sew one at a time instead of stretching the thread all the way across. Just sew one at a time, and then I'll show you how to fold them down and sew them in that little floppy ear position. So with the dog's ears, we've got them sewn on, and we're going to fold them down so it's not quite a centimetre at the top there, and it's not touching his eye at all. It's like off to the side, and making sure that this bit's closely folded. You can actually do it however you want, really. This is just how I like to do it. And we're pinning it down. Now what we're going to be doing is sewing through this layer of his face and the bottom underside layer of his ear. And we're just going to be doing a few loops around so that it's sewn on there. So same as when we sewed the ear on, we're just going to be going in the side here, underneath the ear. And it's kind of tricky to do this bit, and it's kind of tricky to film, and especially with him being so dark. It's going to pop out there, pulling the knot in. So you're mostly going to have to do this bit on feel, trying to catch the ear under here. And I'm just doing one big stitch to hold it down. I'm not going to be doing any small stitches or anything. And just as long as you're not coming up through the top like that, you're just keeping it through the bottom layer, you should be sweet. And I just do it a few times to make sure it's held in place. And because his ears are hanging down, you can just tie it off under here. And his ears are sewed down. It's not exactly how I wanted it, but you get the idea. I might have to redo that one so that it's more off to the side, because I would have wanted it more like that. But you get the idea. It might be something that you have to play around a little bit with. So now we've got our ears sewn on, we're gonna sew the head on, and then unless you're doing anything extra at the end, your doll will be done actually. we're going to be making sure we line up the chin with the center front seam, which doesn't look lined up to you because the camera isn't on angle. We're going to make sure that the gap between here and the shoulder is about 1 centimeter. Once again, doesn't look like that because of the camera angle. I like to pin it just from that view alone. And then if you've got your little guide drawn out in the back, that's great because that's going to help you a lot to line it up at the back. But I will measure between my dart points in my head to make sure they're the same distance, and I'll measure from the side of the neck to the side of the head and make sure that they're the same distance. So I'll get my little ruler and I'm gonna measure it. It's about 2.5, flip it over, just almost 3 centimeters. So we're just going to take the pin out a tiny bit, walk it over, same with this one and this one. And then these ones we're going to do in the other direction. So then that should be just over 2.5. That one's just over 2.5. Perfect. And it's still straight at the front. And we're going to sew the head on. So I'm going to be using a bigger needle for this and making sure I'm tying a nice chunky knot in the end. Flip the cat over and we're going to do our first stitches at the top. So I'm going to go in between the neck and the head so we can hide the knot. I'm going to come out in the head just at the top here, making sure it's all squished down. And I'm just going to go in, catching that, and then coming out in the head quite a distance away. If you're trying to get them all lined up perfectly, that's not going to happen, I can tell you that right now. And I'm stabbing myself repeatedly. Pulling that through. And now I'm going to pop it in and maneuver around the wire in the neck and come out the other side of the neck. So I do this going from one side to the other. To make sure that it sews evenly, because if you sew all of one side and then come back and sew the other side, your head's actually going to sew on lopsided, I have found out the hard way. Now, and holding it tight is going to be the main thing because it will just move around. So if you've got a thicker thread that matches, that's going to be sturdier, I would recommend using that. I'm just going back into the head, catching the felt, coming back out. So I've probably only got like, what, 6 or 7 stitches in it, and I am just putting the feet on my stomach, my chest, to hold it steady. But when I get down to the neck, down near the chin, I don't come out the whole way. I just come out about halfway between. Can you see there? Pulling it tight, and then just doing a little stitch under the chin. Does not look straight at all. And I just go through that a couple of times. Now just make sure the head's not going to be flapping around, just sewn onto the neck. And then come out the other side. And I just keep going until the head's fully secured on. And I've got all the stitches, basically where there's stitches the whole way along, that they're all redone with it sewn onto the head. So when I'm done with all my stitches, I like to go back over the top of some of the original ones because they get quite stretched out. But this is the last one. And then I'm just gonna put the knot at the top here. You can put it under the chin if you want to get tricky, but I mean, you're not going to really see the back of the head anyway, so it's not too much of a bother. And there you have it. Cat's all done, and then the head's like bent forward so you can just bend the neck back so she looks up. So we've got our cat all done. Well, the body's sewn up anyway. Their little legs. So if you wanted to add extra details, I will have them in other videos linked at the bottom. I will have how to make your cheeks and your ears fluffy, how to add the details on that you'll see probably in the intro and the outro of how to do needle felting details on the face, like their little markings and stuff, how to blend in different tones like on their arms here and the dog has on his tail. And I'll also show you how to make claws and teeth and how to do an open style mouth as well. So I'll have plenty of little extra videos. This is just your main tutorial on how to make the body and the head from start to finish. The dog's in really bad lighting. There they are. Yay, you're all done. Give yourself a big round of applause and a big pat on the back and give your new doll a massive hug. Good job. I'm so proud of you. You did it. That's a wrap on our pudding masterclass. How did you go? Do you need any help? Do you want to leave a comment below asking, or you can message me on Instagram. My name's just @KittiePillow there as well. Don't forget, if you wanted to put eyelashes and whiskers, I do have a separate tutorial for that one coming very soon. And if you want to post pictures of your pudding doll, please feel free to tag me on Instagram. I want to see them all so much. I've been looking forward to it for ages. Thank you so much for watching, following along with me, and to all of you who have been so patient waiting for these videos to come out. It's taken me so long to make this tutorial. I'm talking like months and months, and so many of you have been waiting for so long. I do really appreciate your patience and sticking with me while I've been making them, keeping up with all my Instagram stories as I've been going along. In the pattern, I do include different ear options and tail options, so I'd love to see what you guys make with those and what you can come up with your own pattern making abilities. It'd be really awesome to see. Alright, that's it from me, guys. I'll see you all in the next one. I hope you all have an absolutely amazing day. I love you all so much. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on next time. Bye!